I understand that you're one of the first chemists to synthesize cubane carbon skeleton system, the cubane carbon skeleton system. Could you please explain that in layman's terms?
I can explain it. Do you recall having to draw a box? You know, you do 4 squares and that intersect at each, right? Well, you imagine at the intersection, that's a carbon and a hydrogen attached. And so you put that all together and that gives you your carbon, your cubane skeleton. The issue was there are certain restrictions on the bond angle, the angle with which you can bend carbon bonds. And the theoreticians were saying, you can't bend it but so far. And it's up to the practitioner, the organic chemist such as I was, to show that that was not the case. And so we were trying to bend the bonds such that you would generate a stable structure. And it worked. And I mean, I was famous when I finished graduate school. And everything was downhill from that point on.
Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah. You got it? Did you, okay.
What did you want to be when you grew up? Was the presidency always your goal?
No, never was. When I was growing up, I wanted to be a musician. I was all set to become a member of the New York Philharmonic. I was going to, I played clarinet, and with some joy. I liked that. And until I was a senior in high school, I was in band, and even in college, I was a drum major. So music was a part of my life, all of my life. And so I was all set on that course until my teacher in high school called me one day on Saturday morning and said, "What are you going to study in college?" I said, "I'm going to study music." He said, "You just made 100 on my chemistry exam, and I want you to think about going into chemistry." And it was just like that I switched to chemistry.
Thank you for sharing that. Other than this teacher, who were your mentors or role models?
Well, my dad, of course, was one of my main role models. I was saying earlier that Dr. Julius Scott was a very close friend and role model for many, many years. In fact, I never did anything without calling him first. He was just that kind of supporter and mentor, and he never told me wrong. And so he and I have been friends for a long time. And that, in fact, is so necessary in this business where each institution is different. And there is no blueprint always about how you deal with certain circumstances. And you need some other people telling you how to think through things. And I would always call him. He's still a different.
And were you finding that there were barriers to your career choices as far as what you could decide you could do?
Of course. I grew up in segregation, and there were barriers to everything you wanted to do. You just got to the point where you put those things aside and did what you could do and went on. I was fortunate because the timing when I went to graduate school and when I got out of graduate school, I was sought after. And because there weren't many African-American men who had the total training in chemistry. And so lots of folks wanted me on their faculty. And so it became relatively easy to get employment. And I mean, I turned down some great jobs in industry, which paid almost twice what I was getting teaching. But I did not want to go to industry. I wanted to teach. And I wanted to help create another pool of African Americans who could go on and find successful careers in science.
Who did you turn down? A couple of examples, do you remember?
I shouldn't do that. I turned down DuPont. I turned down Procter & Gamble. I turned down Allied Chemicals. There were 4 or 5. BASF. But see, this is before you were born. This is 1966. And that's when the opportunity were beginning to open up for people of color and women to pursue careers in the sciences.